It is that time of the week. New episode of Doctor Who on Disney Plus, and let's talk about 73 yards. Cue the intro. What's whoa 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 whoa? No intro this week? I guess that's because this is a pretty doctorless episode. We see Ruby and the Doctor land in kind of, Wales, just off the shore, and they step on something, and all of a sudden, the Doctor goes away. And once the Doctor goes away, we start seeing this mysteriously old woman that always stands 73 yards away from Ruby Sunday for her whole entire life, pretty much. And what an interesting episode this was. I sense this is going to be a very polarizing episode in that some people are going to love the ambiguity and all the questions and details and call it great, amazing. Big horror and what they loved. Some people who like answers and more analytical, straightforward stories are going to feel kind of burned and feel that this was not as great as a episode as what was promised by people. I probably fall somewhere in the middle to where I don't think the ending of 73 yards really gives you the actual answers and really makes the story fluctuate all the way around. I have questions and they didn't all get answered, but I still can't deny some great performance by Millie Gibson through this whole entire episode. And I feel little vital Easter eggs that dropped in this branch timeline for Ruby Sunday as she goes from a companion to the Doctor all the way up to death, and everything she does while this character who ends up, I believe, being her is 73 yards away, haunting her, and anybody who talks to them just runs away and wants nothing to do with Ruby Sunday. And a few overall thoughts on this episode is the horror element worked very well for me. The old lady kind of at a distance, and when people went up and talked with her, they ran away and got scared. I thought that was a pretty interesting element, and I loved how it did morph itself into a storyline and something that Ruby wanted to do to be right. Taking down somebody who would be, I would say, a commentary on a Trump-like figure for the UK and stopping him once he became prime minister with this. I feel like worked very well, and I thought showed some ingenuity for Millie and Ruby Sunday. But I do think this episode left a lot to be desired about how we get to the end. I think once that character, resigns and Ruby saves the world from potentially a nuclear war or something with the prime minister, we end up seeing her story continue until she's an old lady and she eventually kind of becomes the 73 yards person who scares her younger self from not stepping on the fairy diagram that had taken the Doctor away. Now, Judy Godwin not being in this episode, I do think leaves a big impact because he has been, whether it's with Boom, whether it's with Devil's Court, even with Space Babies, that loud, energetic tone that he brings and that Doctor energy that he brings was lacking here. And I don't think that was a bad overall thing, but I did find myself, especially with this brand new Doctor, missing him and not having him in the episodes. I do think there were crumbs of really interesting storytelling through the episodes. Like, we got Susan Twist talking with Ruby Sunday, and Ruby admitting that, hey, I've seen you before. We've crossed paths before, as we've all known, but this time Susan Twist early on was a hiker. I thought maybe she would be the person who was 73 yards away, but seeing her be a hiker and then seeing Ruby being like, I recognize you, I recognize your face, this is going somewhere. This isn't just a quote unquote extra that's being put. Susan Twist, as we all know, is going to be important and an important character throughout. We got Kate Lethwood Stewart and some more information on what UNIT does and how they kind of help displace Doctor companions with jobs and such things. Like we've seen Martha. Obviously, we're going to see Rose be there. We've seen Melody be there. Are there going to be any other ex-companions that are still alive there? I mean, when you think about it, the only people that are still alive or either old classic Hugh companions. You have obviously Rose and Donna, maybe the 14th Doctor, but I don't think he'll be that much. It sounds like him and Donna are going to not be that way. And then Melody, because we all know that Clara is kind of stuck in her type of loop and she ends up dying. Bill Potts ends up dying. The Ponds went back in time. We've seen the end for River Song, so there isn't that many companions besides Martha to pull from that could be at Unit in the new Who era. Rose is in a separate timeline, but maybe some of the people from the Chibnall era, I haven't watched that, so they could also be there too. Maybe we'll get some cameos down the line. But I thought that was an interesting scene in seeing how even Unit, who was very poised, the 73 yards individual, pushed them away from Ruby. I thought another interesting character commentary that is very silent, but I do think it's poignant and important, is Mrs. Flood. That she sees Ruby and her mother, and as her mother is approaching this character, trying to, get an answer to who this is. And Mrs. Flood goes, "What are you doing? This is weird." But then she looks at it and it's like, "This has nothing to do with me," and just leaves. Which we know she has to be somebody important because she did refer to us and say, "Haven't you seen the TARDIS before?" during the Church of Ruby Sunday. So I think the line has nothing to do to me is really hinting at, like, she knows kind of that this is something mysterious. She knows not to go up to it, but she knows it has nothing to do with her, not important to her at all, but it could have been. She thought for a second, like, something's weird going on. Oh, nothing to do with me. No worries now. The downside of this episode, though, is you don't get any answers besides it was kind of a fairy charm and that's it, per se. Kate Stewart mentions how this is a branched off timeline that we're seeing Ruby age up to. I also feel like Ruby kind of aged the same age the whole way through. And we've had characters like Amy Pond be playing older characters, and you can use the makeup well to make them look older. All they did with Ruby is kind of grow her hair out until she became an older age, to where you replace her with an older actress. So I didn't buy always this big change of time. I do love some of the touching moments, like every birthday, Christmas, she's always toasting the lady who's 73 yards away. I do like the horror elements to it, but for me, a little bit, it was lacking in its analytical approach. And I feel like I didn't get the answer all around that I wanted to do. Like, how did this get stopped? How did we move on from this? Either way, 73 yards is either going to be an episode you love or you have. Sorry for the yawn, but I wanted to sit on this episode. It's now midnight for me. It's midnight for the UK people when this goes on. It's midnight for me in Mountain Time when the episode aired at 5 p.m. I wanted to sit and think about this episode for a while, and I can't get past kind of the weak elements. I side more on the people where I wasn't happy with this conclusion. It felt kind of rushed in the second half. Maybe this would have been a cool two-parter, but I didn't like how it resolved. And I'm giving 73 yards here a solid gold. The acting from Millie Gibson was great. The crumbs through the season that I think may be important were solid, but the overarching theme and kind of what happened and why it happened, I didn't like the vagueness of it. I didn't think there's really like I saw Russell T Davies say he's not going to tell everybody what she was saying. We'll leave that to the imagination, but like, the story wasn't creative enough for me that much at the end to get that imagination. So tell me if I'm wrong down below. Tell me if this was better than Boom. Tell me if this is one of your favorite episodes of Doctor Who in years. Or do you side with me that you felt that it was kind of lackluster ending that left what was a very interesting premise turn into kind of like you didn't know how to finish it off. But that'll be it for my Doctor Who review. A little bit different, more, I think, weird type episode coming next week, but I look forward to that. And I wish everybody here a good holiday weekend in the US. And everybody else, see you later.